This video is based on Lingshan Hermit's work How the Self, Greed, Shortsightedness, and Living Only for the Present Destroy an Individual and a Group of People. All rights reserved. Any infringement will be pursued. In Western society, up until the end of the Middle Ages, greed was classified by the masses as a form of sin. In those times, most people lived the simplest of lives for their entire existence. Greed was viewed as the temptation of the devil, something that could corrode and destroy the soul. Ancient Greek mythology used the tragedy of King Midas to demonstrate the horror of greed to people. However, starting from the budding period of Western capitalism, commerce began to be legalized. Wealth was no longer viewed with suspicion, and avarice began to be encouraged by society. Following the onset of the Industrial Revolution, due to the explosive growth in societal productivity and the mass production of commodities, dissatisfaction began to transform into a praiseworthy quality that everyone was required to possess. You began to be told that you needed more complex tableware, whereas previously, most people had only a bowl and a spoon. That you needed top hats, crinolines, and corsets. Furthermore, you needed pocket watches and clocks to tell time. If possible, it was best to have a pineapple from the tropics on your dining table. For Europeans at that time, this was a symbol of wealth, and possessing these things was regarded as the mark of a civilized and high-status person. These concepts have continued to this day and still survive in the hearts of most people. Since the beginning of the 20th century, avarice has been frantically encouraged. Due to the popularization of credit and the emergence of credit cards, people even began to consume in advance. You began spending future money to satisfy present desires. In the history of Western social development, greed has consistently been the underlying driving force of social progress. And the civilization of extreme material abundance shaped by greed has long been regarded by many as the symbol of social progress and a happy life. If you read Maximilian Karl Emil Weber's The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, you will see the entire process of how the devil borrowed Protestant ethics, sandwiching greed within them to push it, bit by bit, to the forefront, until finally, ethics were completely abandoned, leaving only greed. The devil spent several hundred years thoroughly liberating greed in Western society, endowing it with a legitimate name and identity. It started with Calvin, who wrapped greed in family responsibility, asceticism, and self-discipline, making it impossible for you to detect the scent of greed. Although Calvin appeared strict in his attitude toward avarice, in his writings one can see the devil already hiding within, merely too bashful to make a formal entrance. By the time of Adam Smith, greed had completely cast aside these disguises. With the wealth of nations and the theory of moral sentiments, Adam Smith unlocked human greed. He renamed it self-interest. Profit-seeking no longer needed the protective layer of religious ethics, nor the camouflage of family responsibility. It began to tear off its mask and strut onto the stage with its head held high. From Adam Smith onwards, this situation intensified. After more than 200 years of development, today we no longer feel any shame for our avarice. Therefore, people today would never feel moral unease for buying a few extra dresses. The entire society encourages you to spend money, pushes products upon you, and tells you that the more you own, the happier you are. No one thinks that having a home piled high with things is a sin. Okay, this is the origin of our topic today. Today we are going to discuss how modern Western civilization is destroying itself due to greed, and how the Western mindset, extremely lacking in foresight, has led them step by step into today's predicament. Do you know the source of greed? According to the perspective of the Dharma, it is because you believe that you are a real existence. As ignorant sentient beings, we all firmly believe that we are real existences, and we all firmly believe that the surrounding world is a real existence. Believing that oneself and the world are real existences hides a massive danger. When a person believes they are a real existence, they will naturally choose to protect themselves. Just as we cried to attract attention when we were hungry as infants, This is the human nature of self-preservation. As we age, we generate concepts such as my toys, my stroller, my mother, my ideas, my assets, my interests, as well as who is my friend, who is my enemy, and what I must do to protect my interests and ensure they last. Because we firmly believe we are real, protecting our own interests becomes our matter of course act of justice. Adam Smith's series of theories are built upon this foundation. When such a person begins to be indoctrinated with the idea that the more they possess, the happier they will be, greed emerges as the times require. They will exert all their strength to obtain more rights of possession and control. When they only believe in the present life and not in future lives, it is very difficult for them to develop a philosophy that is not short-sighted. They will not have long-term plans. They will not prepare for death, let alone plan for things 100 years hence. They will only care about what is before their eyes. When such a person encounters a crisis while simultaneously facing a huge temptation, a temptation placed right in front of them, within easy reach, offering a solution to the crisis if only they accept it to escape the predicament, they will choose to be tempted. They will choose to solve only the immediate problem, choose to protect their own interests, and leave the problem to others. Because they only believe in the present life. They only believe in the interests before their eyes. They cannot bring themselves to do otherwise. It is like those addicted to drugs who care only for the immediate moment without considering the aftermath. Their short-sightedness makes them unhesitatingly choose the immediate benefit over the unseen consequences. They will be tempted by the devil, climbing higher and higher, climbing to a very, very high place, only to discover that the ladder is gone. Only one choice remains: to cooperate with the devil. The reason I have such lamentations is that over the years, I have seen countless people walk down this point of no return, and countless others are repeating this same mistake. Some of these are real people around me, men and women alike. Others are characters in movies and TV shows. But whether they are real humans or fictional characters, they are all deeply ensnared in this trap that has existed since ancient times. When there are enough such people, enough to form a nation, then that nation will proceed without looking back onto the path of self-destruction. When a person believes that they are a real existence, believes in possession and control, and believes they have only this one life, and when they also live in an era where greed is encouraged and countless people push commodities upon them, they will do many things to obtain these items, because they have been taught that obtaining these things will bring happiness to themselves and their families. To tempt them, the devil will first give them a taste of sweetness. As we said before, the devil will guide them step by step, letting them climb higher bit by bit. When they reach the highest point, he pulls the ladder away, ensuring they can never come down again, leaving them no choice but to make deals with the devil, finally destroying themselves completely. On an individual level, many people trap themselves in this way, step by step. On a superficial level, they do this out of blind confidence, because they believed wrong information or made wrong judgments. But from the most profound level, they do this because they believe the self is a real existence. They believe all phenomena are real existences, and they believe a certain kind of life can bring them happiness. It is because they are spiritual disciples of Adam Smith, and because they lack understanding of the true state of the world, lacking understanding of both relative truth and ultimate truth. Now you can probably understand a little better why I said at the beginning that a massive danger is hidden here. When you lack understanding of the world, you think you are enjoying a delicacy, when in fact you are drinking poison. Lack of understanding of the world leads you to misjudge. You will be led astray by those you consider smart, believing in erroneous theories and values, thereby ruining yourself. We just spoke about the individual level. Now let us speak about the national level. You all surely know that the US government currently has a massive debt, but most students who do not understand economics probably do not know where this debt comes from, nor do they know what relationship it has to our topic today. As we just mentioned, if there are enough of these short-sighted people, enough to form a nation, such things will happen on a national level. I apologize, as what I am about to say might make some people feel offended because it will challenge the concepts you have stubbornly held onto for so long. I know many people are fans of the United States, so perhaps you can choose not to listen. If you understand the origin and design philosophy of US debt, and understand the stupidity and short-sightedness Americans have displayed in this matter, stupidity and short-sightedness does not mean they are not smart. This is actually the inevitable choice of those who believe the self exists, who believe they only live this one life, and who believe responsibility can be cleverly evaded because in the face of a huge crisis, such people will instinctively choose to solve the immediate problem rather than the root problem. And if you understand that the source of all this lies in our belief that we truly exist, in our greed for enjoyment, and in our indulgence in enjoyment without knowing that all upfront enjoyment must eventually be paid for, you will know how, from the Nixon era to Reagan, Clinton, and Obama, generations of American political, economic, and cultural elites collectively fell into this swamp of stupidity and could not extricate themselves. The US government's $38 trillion debt stems from this. The story begins like this. Starting from the early 1970s, the United States began its harvesting of the whole world. When Nixon announced in a nationally televised address on the 15th of August, 1971, that the US dollar was decoupling from gold, their harvesting of the world began. Perhaps in the beginning, they were forced into it, but they soon discovered it was a very delightful thing. They were pleasantly surprised to find that doing so exacted no price but yielded great benefits. The world did not abandon the dollar because of it. Instead, the dollar became even more indispensable. That is why they decided to solidify a temporary measure into a system that has been used to this day. This is how the devil lures you into the water. The whole world began to use their tangible commodities to exchange for the green paper printed by the United States. They took back the green paper and sent their bananas, coffee, precious metals, and sneakers to the United States. This unfair trade allowed Americans to enjoy an extremely low-cost life for more than 50 years. Large stakes in American supermarkets were sold at extremely low prices, and the powerful purchasing power of the dollar came from this. Countries around the world scrambled to buy US debt to preserve the value of their money because they felt it was the world's safest and highest quality asset. This choice was not a whim. Since the 19th century, the United States had crafted a persona as a compliant and trustworthy nation. Their outstanding performance in World War II, such as supplying the world with weapons, food, and energy, and honoring promises after the war, as well as the establishment of the Bretton Woods system in 1944, allowed people all over the world to rest assured in treating dollar assets as the most stable and high-quality assets. So, for a long time, countries around the world flocked to US debt. It was only in recent years that the situation began to change. Because in recent years, this situation seems to have become unsustainable. US debt is no longer the highest quality asset. Instead, it has started to become precarious. There are many reasons for this situation. First, there are issues with the inherent design. The people who designed this system lacked a thorough understanding of humanity. Their brains were filled with erroneous assumptions. They assumed that politicians, capital, and the public would all weigh things rationally. They assumed the economy would grow forever. They assumed everyone would always believe their complex narrative without seeing through it. What they did not know is that politicians will choose to sacrifice others for their own interests, and the public will indulge in this life of effortless gain, unwilling to endure hard times. What they did not know is that any system is executed by people, and ordinary humans cannot avoid greed. They will choose the option that is least painful for themselves because of their greed. Ordinary people are like this, and politicians are too, because they are also ordinary people. So, by today, it has evolved into a situation where the United States is dragging the whole world to pay off the debt together. With extremely sophisticated techniques, they make the whole world share their pain, make the whole world bleed with them. And all of this is due to the selfishness, short-sightedness, and irresponsibility of the entire society. It can also be said that their self-protection, self-vindication, and self-deception collectively fostered this result. This systemic design framework originally originated with the American founding father Hamilton in the 18th century. It was later crafted and repaired by generation after generation of American elites, but it was not thoroughly completed until 1971. It was crafted into a system where the principal is never repaid, but interest must be paid. This system once let American society become intoxicated in the illusion of prosperity. It was not until 2008 that the crisis slowly began to emerge and dealt them a heavy blow. You could say its design was wrong from the start, a massive pit from the beginning. But by the time everyone truly perceived the problem, it was already 2008. Because whether it was the people who designed this system, the people who participated in amending this system, or the people currently executing this system, whether Hamilton, the Federal Reserve, the 19th century Samuel Chase, or Janet Yellen, they are all humans. They are all selfish humans. Humans with hopes and fears. Humans who can be tempted. They are all ordinary mortals, unenlightened beings. So, they were not smart enough to foresee the final result of their design. And because they are selfish mortals, they were tempted by the devil to fall into this clever, legal, technicalized greed. When they encountered problems, they naturally chose this painless and legal way to solve them, thinking of ways to continue delaying, or secretly making everyone share the burden. This led them deeper and deeper into the trap. The series of events that occurred in 2008 made the United States start to be startled by the problems in the design of their US debt system. This was the first time they discovered they were standing at a very high position, and the ladder had been pulled away. They discovered that even the safest and highest quality assets might face a situation where no one wants them. And once newly issued US debt has no takers, their interest payments will immediately face problems. And this is something they cannot bear. They cannot bear even a tiny rise in interest rates. This would be their greatest nightmare. This situation has intensified in recent years. To cope, American elites have used various techniques and means, from the Federal Reserve directly buying treasury bonds to issuing medium to long-term debt, to inflation dilution. They came up with various methods attempting to delay the outbreak of the crisis, but this at most only alleviated the problem, rather than solving it. However, alleviating the problem sometimes creates the illusion that the problem has been solved. In reality, the problem has only been postponed, not solved at all. It can be said that the United States was tempted step by step to climb to this position from which it cannot climb down. This is not a problem of any single person. It is not the personal decision of Obama, Clinton, or Reagan. This is the result of collective short-sightedness, the inevitable result of Western civilization encouraging greed and protecting the self. Moreover, this is not just a problem of the White House team. It is all the people in American society, including those ordinary people enjoying cheap food, those new immigrants to the US, those policymakers, the traders facing computers on Wall Street, as well as global capital and foreign central banks. They all participated in the crafting of this greatest debt in Western history. Ordinary citizens all enjoy these cheap commodities and benefits immensely. They all covet that life where one can live very well with just a little work. In a society where the public is accustomed to advanced consumption, where the savings rate is extremely low, and where credit cards are universal, no American president dares to actively prick this bubble. And all of this is built upon the clever appropriation of other nations. Over the last 2 or 3 decades, the massive US debt has accumulated enormous principal and interest. They are, in fact, already unable to pay it back. Although they do not need to repay the principal, even paying the interest has started to become strenuous. Various reasons have led to the United States' current struggle. First, a large amount of debt is maturing and can only be rolled over at high interest rates. This debt accumulation has exploded to 38 trillion in recent years. I think this should be credited to Adam Smith's unsealing of greed, credited to the philosophy of the inventor of the credit card, and credited to the intemperately lavish life of American society. They did not know that everything borrowed must eventually be returned. Second, due to systemic reasons, they designed for themselves a pocket with only an entrance and no exit. Once you crawl in, you cannot get out. They have various rigid expenditures, as well as political interests and a powerful persona that must be maintained. If they were to repay money normally, it would cause immediate damage to the interests of many people, because that implies significant tax increases, significant spending cuts, and military budget reductions. Every single one of these would make others extremely unhappy and led to serious consequences. Finally, they need massive debt to maintain their powerful status. They know deeply that only by being deeply bound with the whole world can they continue to maintain the status quo. And most importantly, they have the right to print money. They can print money to dilute the debt. So, the United States will go print money. In this way, the whole world is effectively paying back the money for the United States. This is one of the reasons why you see the price of pork and eggs is twice as expensive as last year. Because although you do not live in the United States, are not a US citizen, and have perhaps never even been to the United States, you are paying off debt for the United States. In economics, this is called imported inflation. You will see heating costs are double what they were before. See the stock market plummeting. See companies laying off workers. Some small countries may even go bankrupt because of this. But basically, ordinary citizens will not link these phenomena to the United States, because of the United States' extremely sophisticated harvesting methods and colossal propaganda machine. He can make you believe that the snake and the rabbit can live happily together. Naturally, he can also make you believe that his wealth comes from his own hard work and the result of the free market system. When a person or a group of people enjoys a powerful military advantage and cultural advantage, enjoys almost unlimited overdraft rights, and when this group is simultaneously the world's most refined egoists who are most adept at performing when they encounter a huge crisis, they will use every means to delay. They will try every way to shift the crisis onto others. The devil has already propped him up to a certain height and confiscated all his other options, leaving him with no other choice. He cannot significantly raise taxes. He cannot let domestic food prices rise significantly because that means the loss of votes. He also cannot cancel welfare, cannot lower military spending, cannot affect the confidence of allies. To maintain the status quo, he can only repeat the same mistakes, continuing to play the previous game of harvesting, until he plays himself to death. But the world is no longer the world of 1980. Countries around the world have begun to wake up. Many of them are choosing to resist silently and no longer be harvested. They are unwilling to be lambs waiting for the slaughter, which makes the US harvesting game extremely difficult. In recent years, ordinary Americans have started to feel prices rising, feel purchasing power declining, feel they cannot earn money. They can only mitigate this by postponing having children, canceling travel, and no longer buying new cars. And this is just the beginning. Perhaps before long, you will see the collapse of the largest monetary system in Western economic history. Collapsing along with it will be Western culture and the confidence of the whole world. Americans' current confidence is built on their ignorance of all this. Most of them do not understand this at all. They are intoxicated by America's exquisite narrative. If you tell Americans that the dollar system is an ingeniously designed modern version of colonial plunder, they likely will not accept it. They are accustomed to the Hollywood hero narrative, accustomed to being the city upon a hill, accustomed to being the lighthouse of the world. To ask them to accept that the civilization they are so proud of is actually just an advanced pirate civilization, where the posture of robbery is merely more elegant than in the past, but essentially still pirates, they will absolutely not accept it. Americans' capacity for self-deception is no weaker than that of the Chinese. Their affluent life is built upon this. For the sake of an affluent life, so that the prices of goods in Walmart do not triple, so that gasoline prices do not align with Europe, so that daily working hours do not increase, so that welfare is not halved, and more importantly, for the sake of their precious self-esteem, they can absolutely never admit it. So everyone can only continue to pretend the problem does not exist and continue to pass the ball down the line. It can be said that stupid, short-sighted politicians, stupid, short-sighted citizens, and American prophets with extremely limited vision have collectively orchestrated all of this. What we just discussed is the story of how the devil utilizes your greed, utilizes your short-sightedness, lets you taste sweetness, lets you slowly climb up, then quietly pulls away your ladder, causing you to lose control, ending in a complete mess. The most fundamental reason for all this lies in our belief in the existence of the self, in the stupid choices we make repeatedly to protect this self that has never existed. In the past few decades, American society has been like it is on drugs. They are intoxicated by this feeling of almost getting something for nothing, intoxicated by this social structure of consume first, pay later, intoxicated by cheap commodities and social welfare, intoxicated by the fact that someone is there to underwrite everything. Those people on Wall Street can earn billions just by moving a mouse. This made them obsessed with this financial capitalism, while abandoning the development of real martial arts, industrial capability, ultimately causing the United States to fall into severe industrial hollowing out. As already stated, this is not the choice or decision of a single person, nor is it just the choice of government decision-making departments. It is the inevitable direction driven collectively by short-sighted people who only care about immediate interests, from Nixon to Bush to Wall Street. It is the failure caused by following the ego at the national level. Just as we said at the beginning, if a person believes they are a real existence, this inevitably makes them selfish. They will inevitably prioritize personal interests. Even if he is the President of the United States, even if he knows what results his choice will lead to in the future, he will still unhesitatingly choose immediate comfort. Those who collectively created all this, they believe the self is a real existence, believe in possession and control, believe the more one possesses the happier one is, believe humans have only this one life. They are accustomed to cheap commodities, accustomed to borrowing, accustomed to the whole world paying for their lives. They also enjoy the right to print money to dilute debt. The devil has propped them up to a height from which they cannot come down, leaving no choice but to continue cooperating with the devil. What will they choose to do? Choose to let others suffer, or choose to suffer themselves? Usually, we do not choose the latter, unless we are enlightened saints. At the government level, they are already accustomed to this mode of borrowing money, not paying it back, and thinking of ways to delay. They are accustomed to being the greatest nation, accustomed to the whole world bowing in obedience, accustomed to the American way of life they are so proud of. Ordinary citizens are accustomed to cheap beef and food stamps, accustomed to piles of cheap clothes and toys at Walmart, accustomed to not saving money and having no worries. They are accustomed to America first, accustomed to disposable products, accustomed to turning the air conditioning down so low they need to wear sweaters. These habits have made them incredibly fragile, and all these habits are built upon the clever appropriation of the fruits of other nations' labor. When all of this begins to contract, when the affluent life they enjoyed in advance begins to require repayment, immense pain will follow. Because this is not a game that can continue forever. In 2008, it already began to reveal the crisis, but the instinct for human self-protection made every American politician want to pass the ball to the next person. They do not want to solve the problem. They only want the problem not to explode in their own hands. They do not want to be the last person catching the ball. So who will be the last person to catch the ball? Since the existence of humanity, greed has always been present. It is just that before the Middle Ages and for a long period, it operated secretly under the halo of moral responsibility. It could not walk openly on the street. Adam Smith and others released it from its cage, allowing it to move about in the sunlight. The theories of the Adam Smiths are built upon numerous erroneous assumptions. He assumed human desires are limited, assumed morality and social norms could constrain greed, assumed humans could be rational enough not to deceive themselves, assumed no one could manipulate prices over the long term. Of these assumptions, viewed now, not a single one is correct. Whether Adam Smith, Hamilton, David Hume, or Max Weber, although the understanding of human society by these top Western brains far exceeded most people, it was still superficial. Their theories have been riddled with holes by reality. They underestimated the wisdom and brilliance of the devil, overestimated human coping ability and sense of responsibility, and underestimated the inevitable wrong choices caused by the inertia of human greed for pleasure and the speed of society's descent. They lacked experience in crossing hands with the devil and did not know how exquisite and enchanting the devil's methods are. Therefore, their descendants are destined to pay for their narrow vision.